Welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and I am so excited to have with us this week Christina Castro. She is an editor for Quantum Leap. You might know her from such episodes as SOS, and this week's episode, Ben and Teller. So I'm very excited to talk to you, Christina. How you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me, Albie.
It's a pleasure. It really is. We love everybody involved in Quantum Leap and everybody that does it. And me being an editor, I'm a professional editor. A much smaller scale. I get paid to edit podcasts and YouTube videos, but I have some idea of what you do. So I'm excited and a fan of your work.
Very cool. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Editing is editing, I think, no matter where you do it. So
is it always arduous? It is always time consuming? I don't think people realize how much time it takes to edit anything.
I think that's right. And I also people don't realize how repetitive of a task it is. So my loved ones are always like, what are you possibly listening to? Repeating the same thing over and over and over again. I just drive everybody batty, but it's fun for me. So
I know how I got started in editing it, just making my own podcasts. And when you're a podcaster, there's no money in it. So you learn to do everything yourself. So pretty much I earned my 10,000 hours before I started getting paid for it, working on my own stuff. How did you get started in like post-production and editing specifically?
Yeah, I took the expensive way. I went to film school. Right out of high school, I went to film school. I did an accelerated program, got my bachelor's in 3 years, and then immediately started struggling like everybody else, and just took whatever work I could get until I could eventually move down to LA. I'm from Ventura County, so I was up there, and yeah, through some wild twist of fate, I ended up here. So I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I was checking out your website and your IMDb, and I was noticing I have seen a lot of things you've edited, because I'm one of those cool. Film nerds that can't wait for the movie to be over when I have a Blu-ray or DVD, and I just want to get to the special features and
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recognized a lot of the things you edited. What's it like cool. doing that kind of work?
That actually was very cool. I did that. That was kind of how I met my contacts into being able to switch from that type of work to scripted television. So yeah, it was actually really cool, as obviously a film fan myself, to be able to watch all of the behind the scenes. What I did was behind the scenes, EPK, DVD special features, marketing material, creative content is what we call it. And it was just a really great gateway to watch how professional filmmaking is done, and to learn like how stories are made, because during that time we were really fortunate. And I say, like, it doesn't exist anymore, it still exists, those people are still there doing great work, but it was, they trusted us with full feature length movies that were in the editorial process at the time. So we got to see how, it depends on what your interests are, right? But I got to see how the edits changed throughout, right? As I was updating my pieces, marketing pieces for the internet and TV and stuff. So it was really actually very exciting and very cool to watch that stuff. And now to be on the other side of it is just like so special to me.
Are you a nerd like me? Do you like get excited when you see all these like famous people that you're editing, like David Tennant or Sigourney Weaver?
Yeah, it was actually, I am a huge Doctor Who fan, and David Tennant is my doctor, so that was really, really cool. I didn't get to meet him, obviously, but right. As an editor, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you feel like the people that you're watching in like a totally non-creepy, maybe to some people creepy way. Yeah. And so it's really cool spending time with them, so to speak. So yeah, I got to cut David Tennant. I got to cut Johnny Depp a few
Oh
times,
wow.
and yeah, it was lots of Disney stuff. It was a lot of
Hmm.
fun. That job was a lot of fun.
Very
A lot
cool.
of
Very
work, but a lot of fun.
cool. A lot of work. Billy Crystal, all kinds of people.
Yeah, Billy
Very
Crystal,
cool.
John Goodman. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very cool stuff.
Do you get surprised with those kind of things, like when you're editing those? Because I know for my job, like like one night I might edit LeVar Burton, another night Terry Crews for something on different podcasts or something. I'm just,
Sure.
oh, that's who I get to edit tonight. Do you get surprised by it, or with your work,
Yes.
is it more of like you kind of know what project you're going into and who you're going to be cutting?
Both. Yeah, so both. So like going into this show, we unless we're looking at the call sheets and looking very closely, paying very close attention, the guest roles, etc., can be a surprise to us. So we've got some really great guest roles coming up this season. And last season we got to do SOS, which had
Mhm.
Superman in it, which was just the coolest thing. Everybody was so excited to see him on our show, and he did such a great job. And it was really a pleasure. It's really a pleasure getting to watch all these different actors, work and see their process.
Great action packed episode too. Very good. Um,
Yeah, thanks.
how did you make the jump from doing like featurettes and different things like that to television, like full episodes?
Yeah. So that job that I had, you make contacts, you're in it long enough and you meet people, so you make friends, you meet people through work, you meet people through school. Um, and I just started telling people what I wanted to do. I wasn't necessarily unhappy with what I was doing. But I felt like I had a dream, right? Or goals to at least try to attain, right? And achieve. So I just started telling people. And I eventually parted ways with that company, got into reality television for a little while where I was editing that. And I got to sort of bypass the assistant editor role in that world. And then one day I got a phone call from a friend who I told her what I wanted to do eventually, and she knew people and she was on a show and they needed to fill a slot. And I showed up and finished out the show for them and then just kept on, getting hired for other shows. So, um, yeah, that's how it worked out for me. I feel like it can be luck, it could be contacts, it could be, it's always involves hard work and tenacity, but
It's a lot of hard work, and it's weird. It's a job that you have that if you do your job correctly, no one thinks about it the whole time.
exactly. Yeah.
So what's that like?
That's the goal, right? They call us in invisible art, visible artists,
Hmm.
right? And right, if we do our job properly, then you won't ever be able to tell, right? The goal is to keep you immersed in the story, um, and and guide you through the storyline, I guess, essentially, right? Make it translate it so that it makes sense for the audience. Um, so, you know.
Our listeners, they might not know like the different positions in the editing department. When we see the credits roll by at the end, or you get a credit up front at the beginning, which is awesome. But like there's
Yeah,
assistant editors, there's special effects editors, there's all these different
that's
editors.
right. Yeah.
Do you all work together, and who does what? Who's responsible for what?
Yeah. So I'm what is known as a picture editor. And then, yeah, you're right. We also have music editors, sound editors, just dialogue editors, all this ADR, everything, right? And we do work together. So the role of a picture editor is we receive the footage while they're filming. So the day after day one really is when we start for real. And we just start getting whatever footage from the scene that they shot the previous day. And we know because we're on the schedule and we know exactly what they're shooting and when. And then we just assemble it according to the script. And we adhere pretty closely to the script. That's called an editor's cut, right? That's kind of our first pass. And that is really to just show the show the way that it was intended originally to be shown. So, and that's what we present to the director. And then we will include sound effects, music. Those are all choices that me and my assistant editor, Jackie, those are all decisions that we make together. And it sort of informs what the music and the sound design will be during the final product. So our job really as editors and assistant editors are to make an episode that nobody has to use their imagination anymore, right? Like it's viewable and watchable and sounds as close to, we don't do as good of a job, right? We're limited in some of our capabilities with our editing software, and that's why we have those other professionals. And on this show, our music team and our sound team are just so excellent. It's my favorite day going to playback and watching it. It's really a lot of fun. They're really great. There's some good sound work in there.
So as I understand it, you have a editor's cut, a director's cut, and maybe a producer's or final cut. Are those the same thing? What's the whole process? How many different cuts before it airs?
There are many, very, very, very many. My mentor likes to tell me we are in the notes business. So we'll do an editor's cut, which will last the duration of the shoot, which on our show is typically about 8 days, give or take, plus a few days, give or take. And then that goes to the director. They're given their allotment of days, 4 days or so. That goes to the producers. They take as much time as they need, really, schedule permitting. And then it'll go to the studio network. And then it goes out just dozens of times before anything airs on TV. Yeah. And then everybody, sort of gives their ideas and collaborates on how to make it better.
Oh, good. A lot of notes. Yeah. I get a lot of notes as well. So I know what you're talking about. It's so nice when you don't get that many though, right?
It depends. I've definitely had, I've been on both sides of it, right? We all have it's always great when you hear no notes, right? But then it's like, are you sure? Maybe somebody else wants to contribute something to this. And so, yeah, there will be, it really depends on what state the script is in, and just any issues that they might have had during production. Sometimes things don't go as planned and you sort of have to adapt and work around it. So sometimes, there's no time and we get 1 or 2 takes, and those are the choices that we have to choose from.
Yeah. Speaking with Dean, he was saying that some episodes come in long on the first cut, and they got to cut 9-10 minutes out. I think I've heard in some cases. When you're putting the show together and you're following the script, I think is what you said pretty much. Are you like in the back of your head, are you thinking you got to get under a certain amount, or are you just trying to get as good as a story as possible to start with, to give the director and producer room to cut what they think they should cut?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Both. We so yeah, like I said, we try to adhere to the script as best as possible. Our jobs as editors are to present the script. And, directors will make choices that we have either spoken about before, they're in the script, or just by watching the footage are very obvious that they'll want in there. So yeah, our editor's cut are typically, for episode 2, it was quite a bit over. It was about 11 minutes over time. And not something I'm very proud to admit, but it is what it is. And yeah, together we took the time out, and I think it plays really well. I think we were able to keep the tension, and actually it plays a lot better with more pace to it.
Mm-hmm. Is like the footage that you use and stuff like preserved, so maybe one day if they were to do like say director's cut or editor's cut releases, the material's still there?
Yeah, yes, it is. So we finalize the final cut, but that footage, especially nowadays, everything's digital. So we back everything up on hard drives, LTO tape, and if at any point we need to restore it, we can. And we archive all of our old versions, and we archive all of our Avid projects and stuff. So
Good.
all it would really take would be a post crew to come in and plug in the hard drive, turn over the director's cut sequence, and send it to online. I mean, it's work, right? They'd have
Yeah,
to
they'd have to color it again
mix
and
it and
remix the
color it
sound.
and all
Yeah.
that stuff, right? They can't just take the original, and sometimes if it's close enough to the original, you can sort of get away with slotting in what's new. I digress. So yeah, it does exist, and
I've heard some good things have been cut for time.
oh
So
yeah, it's always a challenge. It is really just like you don't want to leave anything on the floor, as they say, and just sort of you see something good and you laugh at it or you're touched by it. You want everybody else to experience it too. So it is hard letting go of some stuff, and that's it's it's probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is letting go of it and just trying to make the most like succinct story that you can.
hmm. Cool. I want to nerd out a little bit. I want to ask you some
Yeah.
technical questions that I'm just curious about.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
we've seen some behind the scenes footage or
Okay.
pics on Instagram and stuff. What kind of files are you working with? Are you editing in 4K or are you just you editing like what proxy
So
files?
yeah, we're editing proxy files. When they film the show, they DI will upload it, or send a hard drive. It used to be to the lab, such as I don't know Technicolor or somebody, and they will apply the LUTs and sync it with the audio and upload it to a server where it just sort of magically appears on my computer. It doesn't really. It involves a lot of behind the scenes technical work by Jackie, but yeah, it just appears, and Avid works on MXF file format, so it is technically a proxy file, and so we're running it like I don't know the DNX36.
So are you working mostly at home?
Yeah, we do have offices at Universal, and we do still have the flexibility to work from home. So I did pretty much all of season two, what we've done so far from in here, and then I live very nearby Universal, so I can sort of pop in as needed or as wanted. Right? It's our post production department is unique in that we are located on this, not on the stage, but on the lot where they shoot the show. So we're very close proximity. Usually they shoot in somewhere else, Canada or Chicago or somewhere, and post production is here. But this show they shoot on the lot for the most part and locally, and then so yeah, we get to visit set and stuff, which is
Oh wow.
so fun. Yeah, it's super cool to get to watch them do that stuff.
Everyone I've spoken to from Quantum Leap, they seem to be very kind and supportive of each other. Do you get that feeling working with this team?
Yes, it really is. It really is. We all feel, I think, very fortunate in that we all kind of nurture each other. It's a very, I think all of TV it's all very collaborative, right? But on this show, I think it's so big and it can get complicated at times, and so it's really important to team up and make sure that we're all making the same show, right? Because it's so easy to just sort of sit in your little dark room and forget about the world and only focus on the task at hand. And um, it's great to put your mark on something, but also we all want to make the same show. So we all we all, communicate outside of work. We're all great friends. We all support each other, and it's really a really fun post-production team, but also the production people are really cool too.
That's so awesome. You edited SOS. I see the poster behind you. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Those are always fun. And of course, you edited this week's episode that everybody just watched, Ben and Teller. Well,
And Teller.
you're editing the same show, Quantum Leap, for those two episodes, but they're two very different episodes because one's like an action thriller and one's more of an intimate, like people episode inside of a bank. There's some action. But what are some of the differences? But you want to keep the show the same show, but it's also different genre, almost different period also.
Yeah.
Does that affect
that's what it's a very challenge. That's what makes this show. It presents a unique challenge, which is every episode is in its own time era and genre. So we are introducing new characters every week. We have to make sure the audience is invested in those characters, right, in order for the episode to work. But you're right, each episode is almost like a bottle episode in a way, which makes it a lot of fun, right? Like you get to play with different genres, like each new episode that you get to work on. But also, it's a very tight schedule, so you have to make decisions very quickly.
Very cool. Another random question I had, we've been very fortunate here at the Quantum Leap podcast to see very early cuts of episodes, like with stock footage and different things, temporary special effects, maybe, or just a card that might say something going to happen.
Yeah.
When you're editing, are you like in charge of finding stock shots that might not be the final ones, but one that works for the edit at the time, or is that your assistant, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm not in charge of it per se. The assistant or our production or post production coordinator or post PA, Gabby and Esmeralda. I sort of will say, it's either scripted or we need, and most of the time they're way more ahead of it than I am. They're already working on it, and so I'll get to it like, oh yeah, we need a skyline shot, whatever. We don't use a whole lot of stock in this show, but sometimes we do. And they're already finding it,
Very cool.
So we have a team of people, and then we also have somebody on the studio side who has stock that we can use from the Universal Library and stuff. So
very cool. As an editor, do sometimes you get an idea that you maybe think, oh, this would make that great, but I don't have it, and maybe communicate that to a producer or director or something, or is it too late?
I'm going to say, sometimes it is too late, but if it depends on where we are in the shooting schedule. Say, for instance, they didn't have time on the day to get an insert, right? And it's integral to the storyline. They'll go and pick it up, right? And so during the editor's cut, if we don't, it's very rare that we have every piece of footage that we're going to use at the very start of the process. Sometimes, we wait until the very, very end to get something cleared and slotted in and send it out the door. So, that part's kind of fun.
How many versions do you go through? Like when you're naming your final, is it like final version 2, final, really final?
Yeah.
How does that work?
No. There's a naming structure that we adhere to. Every show has kind of its own unique naming structure, but it's pretty much like if we're in the editor's cut, this is editor's cut, work in progress. And, then it goes out, that's the editor's cut, and then the director's cut, and then we'll do director's cut 1, 2, 3, whatever, however many versions they do, etc. So internally, we name it, but there's for each episode from the very start, I mean, I've got probably 10, 20 sequences, and you're always duplicating because anytime you want to try something new, it's, at least for me, I'm pretty I'm pretty non-committal until I have to be. So, you make different versions and you test them out and see which ones work. You ask your assistant, hey, can you watch this, or one of the other editors, and yeah, that's sort of how we work together.
Oh, that's cool. Other editors, and you get another pair of eyes on it, because sometimes you get too close to it, right?
All the time, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very easy to sort of dig into it, and just you're this close to it. But yeah, we bounce it off each other. And another way that we work together is the leap scenes. So the leap scene for, I don't think episode 2 has a leap scene at the
No,
end.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, it doesn't. It used to.
Okay.
And so what we'll get that scene from the editor who cut that scene, and in our case it was Piper, and Martin usually will adjust it how he wants it, and then that will go back to the editor whose episode it originated in. But since it airs after mine, they sort of, so that sort of helps us maintain consistency, and also a really great way for us to collaborate with each other and see what each other are doing, steal ideas maybe.
How does that work? Like, I know there's probably you're what's the union like for say television editors? And like, is there things to where like yes, you worked on a part of an episode but you're not credited for it, but do you still get paid for it? Like little things like that, leap ins, leap outs that might not be from that episode, little parts.
Yeah, I think that there's a rule, and in order for you, I think you have to, don't quote me on this, but I think you have to do like a certain percentage, 50% of an
That makes
episode in
sense.
order to be credited. And then there's a process involving paperwork where you have to ask the original editor, hey, is it okay if we share credit? They always say yes, because we're all cool. But but yeah, that's the
Very cool.
process on that.
And with talking about unions and strikes and stuff, how did that affect your livelihood? Like, if they're not filming, right, and writing, you don't have as much to edit, right? How does that work?
That's true. I was fortunate, in that I was on through episode 8, which is going to be our mid-season finale. So I got to stay on through, mid-July, basically. So the writers went on strike. We went on production went on hiatus, which was a pre-planned hiatus. And then by the time that was supposed to end, they were on strike. We were able to finish our episodes. We were far enough along in the process where it didn't really hinder. And then, yeah, I've just been hanging out during the summer, both anxious and not so anxious to get back into it,
Mhm.
But yes, it definitely has affected all of us, really. And everybody on the show we're starting to get the ball rolling again, getting ready to come back for part 2 of season 2. And I think that's just contingent on the SAG negotiations, since WGA ratified their deal.
Right,
So
right.
that's very good news. And
Mhm.
hopefully it looks good for the actors too. And we can all sort of get back to making our show.
Awesome. Can't wait. One thing I was very happy about is that the first 3 episodes were done and out to the media so early, which means, the post production is really ahead of the game, which is great, instead of like down to the last minute almost.
Right.
Uh, how far ahead are you? Is 8 already edited pretty much?
8's edited, delivered. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's
Good, good,
yeah, it's
good.
ready to go. I think that everything has been delivered for part 1 of season 2. And the planning, we're in the planning process with starting up production for part 2.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So hopefully I'll get to see some of those soon.
Yeah. Me
I've seen
too.
up, I've seen up to 3. I'm looking forward to the other 5 of the season. That'll be good.
Yeah. It's a really special season. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Ben and Teller, because everybody just watched that, presumably, if they're watching this, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Do
If
you
not,
remember
please go watch it.
do you remember anything like any anecdotes or anything from sitting in the editing room and editing Ben and Teller? Anything out of the
Ben and
ordinary or
Teller,
fun?
Ben and Teller was a fun episode because it was pretty straightforward. It propels the story forward, but we're also kind of doing our own thing, right? And sort of having fun, you know. And it was a lot of fun. Ian being the hologram is always just so fun, and just watching them work. And Ian and Ray bouncing off each other is hilarious, and they just sort of ad lib and just have a fun time. We had a really great director, Kristen, and she did like a really phenomenal job. She's somebody who also comes from an editing background, and somebody who was in my orbit, in Martin's orbit. Everybody's, he had worked with her before, and I finally got a chance to work with her, and it was seamless and great. And she just made like a great episode. So I felt very comfortable and confident being in her hands.
That's good. Yeah, they say, what do they say? A good director is a good editor because they know the pieces they need to get, pretty much. Right?
I think so. In my limited experience, it really is the sign of a good director. I think when they can edit as they're shooting, right, or as they're in pre-production. Their blocking is also very important, and a really great director will give you only what they want you to show, right? And sort of weigh your hand almost in what you use where. And the role of an editor, I think, is to help bridge what the director wants, and what the showrunners want, and sort of meld them together and make our show.
There's am I right in understanding there's two different director of photographies on Quantum Leap? I know Anna.
Anna shot
Yeah,
our show.
right.
Yeah.
Ben and Teller.
It's actually funny. I think that the shot where Ray Ben sits at Lorena's desk at the first time, and he's sort of
Mhm.
getting his bearings and seeing what the date is, etc. The picture of the mother and the daughter, I think that is actually Anna and her mom.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
notice that.
I think
I
that's
gotta, I
it.
gotta
I
look
think
at
that's a
that.
picture of them. Yeah,
That's awesome. I
so
gotta look at
that's
that.
really special. I just love it when we get to participate like that.
Hmm. Are there some edits, not necessarily on Quantum Leap, but some that are better than others that maybe you might have about the right amount of footage you need, and sometimes you have way too much footage, and it's like a nightmare? Do you have any of those
Yeah,
stories? Yeah.
yeah, that was basically, I don't want to say nightmare. That's not but that was I would say episode 114 was
Mhm.
I was drowning in footage. Chris Grismer did just he's a beast, man. He I don't know how he does it, but he shot that episode. It was such a challenge. They were on the USS Montgomery, very
Mhm.
tight, compact spaces, very dark. And just so much footage.
Good coverage, a lot of
And
coverage.
lots of, actually, yeah,
Yeah.
which is impressive given the restraints that he had. So yeah, definitely there's times where you're drowning in it and you just don't have the time, and but your job is to, you have to watch everything. So
Yeah.
you just sort of, make it work somehow. Just those are the times where you have to be committed to your decisions, and just trust that your instincts are right. And if they're not, it's not the end of the world. Somebody has your back, right? Like, it will somebody will help you make it better. And that's what's really great on this type of editing versus some editing that I've done in the past, where a lot of it, all of it was written and edited by myself, right? I just get interviews or whatever, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and
Mm-hmm.
you just have to, they say, okay, here's your 2-hour interview with so and so, and we want to show them talking about the stunts. You have a week. So like, and then it's just, that's it. And maybe if you're lucky, you get transcripts to the interviews, and you dive right in. And on this type of thing, everybody has their own role and their own sense of responsibility to the project. So like I say, we all got each other's back, and you just got to stick to it and get through. But yeah, on the other hand, there are some scenes that where, they're just wham bam, and like some of the HQ scenes, they can be challenging because there are rules with HQ. We want to make sure that it's always moving and engaging, and but I mean, Malcolm and then Rissa and Ernie and everybody, they have it down, so they make it really easy for us.
That's awesome. So a few more questions before we go. I want to be more respectful of your time, but I'm just very interested in this whole process.
Oh, I got all the time. I've got all the time in the world.
What's your process like? I know I like to look at all the stuff I have first, and then I kind of pick the pieces out in my mind while I'm watching it, and then try to do a rough edit. Is that kind of like your process?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be editing in my head as I'm watching the dailies down. So my process will be, I'll get the scene, right? We'll get, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 scenes from the previous day, and the corresponding paperwork, notes from the script supervisor, etc., and just sort of, assemble the scene as they come to us. And then I typically like to just make my skeleton, right? I'm gonna have it, all the dialogue there, have maybe shots that I want to use, and just toss it in there, and then I will move on, because you don't ever have all day to work on one scene unless it's like sort of like a pinnacle scene where it's got a lot of moving parts and stuff, and they shoot it over multiple days, and that you sort of have to dedicate more time to. So you kind of have to move on quickly, and then later is I'll hand it to Jackie. And we have great editorial team, great assistant editors. Ian Mayberry, Piper Cruz, me, and then Catherine, Katie, and Jackie are our assistant editors, and they really just, she will do her sound work on it, and she's great. Like, I can ask her to go in and, hey, I'm having trouble finding the right music. I want it. I just can't. I don't have the time to go through and listen to everything. This is what I want the vibe to be. And then magically she will find it and cut it in, and I don't ever have to worry about it again. So it's kind of a multi-step process. And then once we're far enough along into the shooting schedule, maybe we've got like a day or two left, is really when your episode starts to take shape. And it's during that time where you start to add music, at least for me. I wait until pretty much the very end to add music, and then I let the music help propel the pace of the show, if that makes sense. Just I think from my background in marketing, it was very music heavy, and so I just sort of, and music is so important, I think, to every show. We have a lot of it in ours, so it's just about finding the right vibe and going through and just watching it as many times as you have time to. And if you can watch it with, together as a team, it's even better. And then you just sort of, it used to be, before we started working from home, we would all be working in the office together, and we could just sit on the couch in the office, have a big TV, watch it, as though we're watching it at home, and make our notes, etc. But not so much anymore. So yeah, I wait until kind of the end to sort of start taking my air out, and and then going in, we already know what works and doesn't work for Martin and Dean, right? with some, trial and error. Of course, every episode is different. So that really helps us sort of inform our decisions and make them kind of quickly.
Are the needle drops in the script, or are you picking them, or is it collaborative, or how does that work? Because there's some expensive songs playing. They got to be expensive because they're very good songs for the
They
first
are.
two seasons so far. Yeah.
Yes, some of them are scripted, and some of them aren't. Sometimes there's not one scripted, but you get to a point in the episode where you think, man, this would benefit from a needle drop. Is there money in the budget? And then we'll go to the music supervisor and ask them for options, and they'll choose what's available to us and within our budget, and we can whittle it down from there. So if it's added later, usually it's a collaborative process. They'll send us stuff, we'll present options to Martin, and then he'll choose, right? So yeah, there have been some needle drops that I've tried to get in there, and they won't stick. But
maybe one day.
Maybe one day, yeah.
So people have seen SOS and they've seen Ben and Teller. You got a couple more episodes coming in this first part of season 2. Without any spoilers, Could you just say something about them?
Oh man, they're so big.
Big, good, exciting, something to look forward to.
Yes, Ben goes to some really cool places. He leaves the country, and we meet some really interesting characters that really challenge Ben and Addie specifically, and yeah, we get to see just witch hunts and Egypt and the LA riots, and we just go everywhere, and it's just, I'm really excited for part 2 season 2 because I can't wait to see, episode 8 they shot in Egypt, and that was just so cool for me personally, and just getting to watch it, and that presented its own challenges, but the final product is really fun. I think really special.
Do you I know you're seeing everything as it's coming in unedited, so it's much different than what we see. But are you still getting sucked into the story sometimes?
All the time. Yeah, especially when especially when it's something that we have a lot of emotion in this show. They like to really lean on the character connections with our main cast and also our guest casts. So that's always, when we were doing 14, it was such a special storyline having Addie with her dad, and her dad being Brandon was just extra cool on top of that. So watching Addie sort of internally navigate that, why was he so hard on me when he's really just this big softie, and watching Ben support her through it, and just, yeah, I agree with you in that the guest roles are kind of the fun part, right? Because you get to introduce new characters and play with new genres and concepts, depending on what's going on with them. So episode 2 was fun because our challenge there was, since it's not a grander episode, it kind of pumps the brake a little bit coming out of episode 1, was to maintain the tension throughout, while also balancing that sort of gut wrenching moment, right, that comes in at the end where, can I say they've seen it, right? So where Ben just really only has to look at Addie, and he knows,
heartbreaking.
Oh man,
heartbreaking.
I
cried.
And now as an audience, yeah, me too. And as an audience, where do you? We all ship baddie on our show, is what we call them, and so seeing them challenged is challenging for us too.
Job well done.
Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't, that part did not change. They just, Caitlin and Ray they knew what to do. Kristen knew what to do. I cut it together, and that is what aired. So it really was perfect, I think, from the word action, I think. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Ben and Addie sort of navigate that in the future.
One thing I wonder is, do you save the bloopers? Is there going to be blooper gag reels down the line, and
Oh
how do you
man,
do that? Is it something that makes you laugh,
yes,
or?
all the time. Jackie gets to see them more often than me because Jackie's job is to process the dailies and sort of what we call mark them up for the editor. So she will make a notation whenever they say action. Is very boring and technical, I think, for somebody who's not interested. But so she sees every minute of footage, and I see, I will scrub past, action and cut, but for the most part, I see the action and the cut. So yes, the answer is yes. There is, in every project, there is a bin that we save of bloopers, and anytime we come across them, we subclip them, toss them in there, and at the end of the season, Universal gets them, as part of our archiving duties. So hopefully there will be a physical release, and everybody gets to see that stuff, because man, Mason and Ray and even Ernie. I mean, they're just, Manrissa, they're just, all of them are just, they have so much fun, and it's really fun watching them just vibe on set, because we get to see, when they're not working, so to speak. They're working, but when they're not acting. And yeah, they're all just hilarious, especially Mason. Everybody loves them and their ad libs and just their whole vibe and personality.
Do you still watch the episodes when they air, even though you see them so many times? Yeah. Is that your time to relax and enjoy, or are you still like looking at your work, making sure everything?
I'm still, it's both. I like to watch it on the TV any opportunity I get as part of the process. It really helps when you detach from and leave the environment of like the edit room, and actually like sit on the couch and watch it as a viewer. It changes your perspective, and you can see it sort of more in line with how the audience might see it. And that's really, really helpful. But also I like to watch them after they air, and just sort of like, almost like you're watching like your own sports game, right? And trying to like improve your game, right? So I like to watch and just sort of see what made that episode special, right? Like, man, that director really was able to nail this, that, and the other thing, and look at how beautifully that turned out on screen. And then also like, oh man, I wish that I had cut just a hair later, or I wish that line was on camera, stuff like that. And you're just always, I feel like the work is never done. You're always gonna, unless they take it away from me, I'm always gonna be whittling away at it. And I think that's a big part of the process for a lot of people, and learning to let it go and enjoy it for what it is and move on to the next thing is a challenge in itself, but also really cool. It's such a cool job to like participate in making something that people love, and this show is unique to me and my career in that, like, it, along with one other show maybe that I've worked on, has a big fan base, and people really care about it, and there's an internet presence of fans, and we get to see the feedback, and we're listening.
Very cool. Christina Castro, thank you so much for joining me on
Thank
the
you so
Quantum Leap
much.
podcast.
This was so cool.
it's so cool for me. You're you do what I want to do one day, so that's very cool that I got to
Well,
talk.
I hope you can. It really is a special thing, and I feel very fortunate. Especially, you know, we're so lucky to work on. It's such a fun show. It's very challenging in a lot of ways. It's massive, but man, when you get that footage, you know, and like you see the super cool shot of the ship, and the cannons are not really going off, but in the final one they're going off,
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah.
we make it seem like they are, and it's just
Mhm.
it's a dream come true, and it really is. I can't wait to get back to it.